November 1944, Western Front. A German intelligence officer reads a casualty report, then another, then 14 more. Every report says the same thing. Observer killed. Inside a concrete bunker. No visible entry point. The Nazis had a word for it. Unmöglich. Impossible. But across the front lines, American snipers whispered a different word. Gapshot. This is the story of how a pool hall hustler broke the laws of war, and German high command never saw it coming. Picture this. Fall 1944. You're an Allied commander staring at a map of the Siegfried Line. 300 miles of fortifications, thousands of bunkers, each one a concrete tomb, 3 feet of reinforced steel and stone. Your men advance. They die. You send artillery. The bunkers shrug it off. You send tanks. Anti-tank guns tear them apart. You send your best snipers. They come back shaking their heads. The problem? The slits. German observation posts had vision slits barely 3 inches wide, steel reinforced, angled inward. You couldn't shoot through them, not with a direct shot. The angle was impossible. But those slits, they saw everything. Every troop movement, every supply column, every attack before it happened. German observers would call in coordinates, artillery would rain down, your men would die. Week after week the casualties mounted. Hundreds of men, thousands of rounds fired, 0 bunkers neutralized. Commanders were desperate. And then, a corporal who'd never finished high school had an idea. Frank Keller wasn't supposed to be a war hero. Before Pearl Harbor, he was nobody, a dropout from Chicago's South Side. But Frank Keller had a gift. In the pool halls of Chicago, smoky rooms where men bet their rent money on a single shot, Keller was a legend. Not because he was strong, not because he was fast, because he understood angles. Watch this. Most players shoot straight. Keller, he thought in geometry. He could bank a ball off 2 cushions and drop it in a corner pocket. He could see the trajectory before he took the shot. Physics. Pure, intuitive physics. The kind you don't learn in a classroom. When the Army drafted him in 1943, they gave him a rifle and called him a sniper. They taught him windage, elevation, breath control. Standard stuff. But Keller's mind? It was already working on a different level. While other snipers aimed at what they could see, Keller was calculating what they couldn't. And on a cold morning in November 1944, that difference would matter. Strong Point 7. That's what the maps called it. A German observation bunker in the Ardennes sector. 17 Allied soldiers had died trying to take it. 17. The bunker sat on a ridge overlooking a critical supply route. As long as the observer inside could see, nothing moved without German artillery turning it to scrap. Captain Hayes, Keller's Manning officer, had tried everything. Mortars. Useless. The concrete was too thick. Smoke grenades. Temporary. The observer just waited. Flanking maneuvers. Suicide. The machine gun nests cut them down. Hayes called in his snipers. 5 of them. The best shots in the division. They tried for 3 days straight. 0 hits. The slit was 3 inches wide at 480 yards. Even on a perfect day with 0 wind, the probability of a direct hit was almost 0. And then Keller spoke up. "Sir, what if we don't shoot straight?" Hayes looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "What are you talking about, Corporal?" Keller pointed at the bunker schematic. "There's an I-beam, right inside the slit, supporting the roof." Silence. Then one of the other snipers laughed. "That's a pool trick, Keller. This is war." Keller just shrugged. "Pool tricks follow physics, same as bullets." Hayes stared at the blueprint, then at Keller, then back at the bunker. He had 17 dead men, and no other options. "You get 1 shot, Corporal. Make it count." November 14th, 1944, 060 hours. Keller lay prone in the frozen mud, his M1903 Springfield resting on a sandbag. 480 yards to target. Through his scope,
The bunker's observation slit was a dark line, no bigger than his thumb at arm's length. Inside that slit, somewhere, was a steel I-beam, maybe 6 inches wide. His target wasn't the German observer. His target was a piece of steel he couldn't even see. The math was insane. The bullet had to travel nearly 5 football fields, strike the I-beam at a 23-degree angle, ricochet inward at approximately 31 degrees. Margin for error? Less than 2 inches. Miss by a fraction, and the bullet deflects outward. Wasted shot. Position compromised. Hit it perfect, and physics does the rest. Keller adjusted for wind, adjusted for drop, adjusted for the angle of the I-beam based on the bunker's construction plans. He exhaled slowly. His finger tightened on the trigger. The rifle cracked. The bullet struck the I-beam with a sound like a church bell hit with a hammer. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, movement. A German soldier stumbled out of the bunker's rear entrance, shouting in panic. Inside Strong Point 7, the observation post was dark. The observer was dead. Captain Hayes lowered his binoculars. His hands were shaking. "Corporal, what the hell did you just do?" Keller worked the bolt on his rifle, chambering another round. "Pool trick, sir." Hayes knew immediately this couldn't go in the official record. Not because it didn't work, because it worked too well. If word got out, every sniper in the army would try it. Most would fail. Some would die revealing their positions. The gap shot demanded perfect conditions, a specific angle, a ricochet surface inside the bunker, unshakable hands. 1 in 100 snipers could pull it off. So Hayes kept it quiet. But he didn't keep it secret. Late at night, away from headquarters, Keller would teach. Not with manuals, not with lectures. With pebbles. He'd set up a rock, bounce another rock off it at an angle, show them the geometry. You're not aiming at the target, you're aiming at the path to the target. By December 1944, maybe 24 Allied snipers had learned the technique. They didn't talk about it, didn't write it down. But across the Western Front, German bunkers started going silent. Herdgen Forest, 3 observation posts, neutralized. Ardennes sector, 5 machine gun nests, abandoned. Siegfried Line, 11 forward observers, dead. No explosions, no infantry assaults. Just silence. And in the intelligence offices of the German High Command, someone started asking questions. Major Klaus Dietrich had seen strange things in war, but this made no sense. March 1945. His desk was covered with incident reports. 14 bunkers, 23 casualties, all the same pattern. Observer killed inside fortification. No structural damage, no breach, no explanation. Engineers inspected the bunkers. They found bullet fragments, deformed rounds. But the trajectory was impossible. The bullets came from inside the bunker. "Herr Major, this is not possible," the senior engineer insisted. These rounds struck from within, but there were no Allied soldiers inside. No sabotage. The concrete is intact. Dietrich requested ballistics experts from Berlin. They examined the evidence for 3 weeks. Their conclusion? The enemy has developed a new technique. We don't know what it is. Theories flew. Some thought it was a new rifle. Others suspected sabotage. One officer suggested ghost infiltrators. The Americans had figured out how to shoot around corners. In the files of German military intelligence, they gave it a designation. Abpraller technique, the Ricochet technique. But among the soldiers in the bunkers, they had another name. Der Geistschuss. The ghost shot.
The Germans adapted. They had to. By April 1945,
New directives went out to every bunker on the Siegfried Line. Steel plates installed at sharp inward angles inside observation slits. No more exposed I-beams. Curved deflector shields around embrasures. Multiple layered slits, making ricochet paths impossible to calculate. Forward observers were ordered to use periscopes instead of direct observation. It reduced their field of view by 40%, made them slower to react, but it kept them alive. The cost was enormous. Thousands of man-hours, tons of steel diverted from tank production, all to counter a technique the Germans still didn't fully understand. The Gapshot never won the war, but it forced the Wehrmacht to redesign their most secure positions to defend against a pool hall trick from Chicago. That alone made it one of the strangest tactical innovations of World War II. May 1945. The war ended. Frank Keller came home. No medal, no parade, no official commendation. He got a job as a crane operator in Cleveland. Same precision, same understanding of angles, just moving steel instead of bullets. His kids asked him about the war sometimes. He'd tell them about the cold, the mud, the friends he lost, but never about the shot. Captain Hayes tried to get him recognized, wrote letters to the War Department, but there was no official record of the Gapshot, no training manual, no after-action report. The technique that baffled German intelligence was a ghost in American records too. Keller died in 1998, age 76. His obituary mentioned his service, called him a veteran sniper. It didn't mention that he changed tactical doctrine for an entire theater of war. For 50 years, the Gapshot was a legend. Old snipers would tell stories in VFW halls. I knew a guy who could bounce bullets around corners. Historians dismissed it. Too Hollywood, too impossible. Then in 1992, a military researcher named Dr. Alistair Finch found something, a personal letter, tucked inside a box of papers from the 29th Infantry Division, written by Captain Robert Hayes, never sent. November 14, 1944, Corporal Keller executed what I can only describe as an impossible shot. Ricochet technique, 480 yards, neutralized strong point 7 without direct line of sight. Recommend commendation, but technique too dangerous for widespread adoption. Finch cross-referenced Allied records with declassified German intelligence reports. The pattern matched perfectly. German files described impossible deaths in bunkers. American files had gaps, unexplained tactical successes. The Gapshot wasn't a myth. It was real, and it had been deliberately hidden from history by both sides.
So what do we learn from the Gapshot? That innovation doesn't always come from laboratories or war colleges. Sometimes it comes from a pool hall in Chicago. That the most effective tactics aren't always the most conventional. Sometimes a bank shot beats a straight line. And that history has a way of forgetting its most creative heroes. Frank Keller never wanted glory, but he deserved recognition. The Gapshot saved hundreds of Allied lives. It forced an entire military apparatus to redesign their fortifications. It proved that individual ingenuity, one man with an unconventional idea, could shift the balance of an entire theater of war. Today's military snipers use technology Keller couldn't have imagined. Laser rangefinders, ballistic computers, guided ammunition. The best shot isn't always the obvious one.